Hello students, welcome to the BA Part 3 WhatsApp group which I formed a few days back. I hope you all now have access to the notes and the content which I am going to share. Please remember that I have made these notes by consulting a lot of books and sources, and I have tried to bring the best for you all. Please make the best use of these notes. Today we shall discuss The Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold, and please pay attention to all the important points which I am sharing along with this PDF note. Now first we shall look at a brief summary of the Dover Beach, and before we get into the summary also, let me remind you of a few important points. That is, Matthew Arnold was a famous, renowned Victorian poet like Alfred Tennyson and Robert Browning. This poem Dover Beach was published in 1867 in the collection of new poems by Matthew Arnold. Now, you have in your second year you studied a lot of the romantic poets like Keats, Shelley, etc. So remember that the romantic age was followed by the Victorian age, and the Victorian age was followed by the modern age. As we come close to the modern age, that was the time when Matthew Arnold was writing, we see that the poets no longer take the flight of imagination and go into beautiful worlds and write beautiful poems. They remain in close touch with the harsh realities of life on earth. कल्पना की उड़ान भरकर नए विश्व में पहुंच जाना और वहाँ पर सुंदर शब्दों और अलंकृत भाषा के माध्यम से खूबसूरत कविताओं को रचना अब कवियों को रास नहीं आ रहा था। वे इस पृथ्वी के जीवन की कठोर यथार्थ से जुड़कर कविताओं की रचना कर रहे थे। So in the Dover Beach also, you will find that apparently the poem seems very romantic, because it is interesting to note that Dover Beach was written by Matthew Arnold when he took his wife for a honeymoon to France. So, considering the background, the poem might seem romantic, but after reading a few lines, we find that there is a serious philosophical message in the entire poem, and the poet is really worried about the state of affairs of the world. So let us first look at the important points, and then I shall discuss some more important things with you. The speaker in Dover Beach is lamenting the loss of religious faith during a time of progress in science and industry. Why is he lamenting the loss of religious faith and progress in science and industry? Let us find out. The speaker is standing at a window, musing and looking out at the ocean. He seems to be talking to a loved one, and this loved one is his wife, whom he had taken for a honeymoon to France, and he invites his wife to join him. Come to the window, sweet is the night air. So, superficially or apparently, such an invitation is a romantic gesture, offering the beloved to chance to share with him the lovely ocean view. The sea is calm tonight, the tide is full, the moon lies fair. Look at the beautiful lines. Apparently, it looks like a beautiful description of nature, which we can also see in our imagination, and we imagine the couple standing before the sea when night is falling. But that scene is not in the offering, and we will soon find a very different mood. As I said, a serious philosophical message is being put forward by the poet. The second stanza features the speaker dramatizing the crashing of the waves upon the ocean shore, and in place of the enjoyment of the lovely calm scene, the speaker's thoughts have turned to the possibility of the universally shared brutality and sadness of the world with its inhumanity to man and its endless wars. Why has the poem taken a serious turn? The poem has taken a serious turn because the poet realizes that we are losing out on our faith. Initially, we were happy because we believed that our religion and our faith would solve all our problems. But with the discovery of science and the increase of knowledge, people had begun to question religion and its analysis. So now they can neither totally believe the religion and neither can they totally depend upon science to solve their problems. So they are in a stage of transition. They cannot remain with the old values and they cannot accept the new things totally. And therefore, this mood of humanity is voiced by the poet in these lines. And he believes that this situation has been the cause of worry from very old times, like from the times of Sophocles, who was a writer of tragic drama. So, like Sophocles' own deliberation or meditation regarding the ebb and flow of human misery, this modern day speaker, that is the poet, has further thoughts on the matter and he will unfurl them as he continues his drama. In the fourth stanza, which we can call the protection of faith, there is an advice in the poem's lines. The speaker lays out his lamentation regarding the status of humanity. In an earlier time, humanity remained safe in religious faith. Safe in religious faith, but one should note that the speaker does not name any particular faith, nor does he attribute that faith to the idea that it protects. The fifth stanza has been named that we can save the world only with the help of love, the protection of love. The speaker then offers a piece of advice and the only cure for this abysmal loss of faith that is being suffered in his time. Of course, the qualifying notion must be added if there need by a cure at all. The speaker then again appears to speak to his beloved, whom he had earlier asked to join him at the window. Then the speaker makes a very important observation of the world and he concludes his lamentation with an image of the greatest lamentation of all human history. He believes that essentially humanity exists on a dark plane and it is hurtled about by alarming struggle and flight, and on that dark plane there are always ignorant armies who clash by night. While the opening of the poem seems to have the speaker inviting a loved one to join him at the window, it is more likely that he is inviting not only his beloved but all of us, all of humanity, to join in his meditation about the status of the deteriorating world. The speaker is concerned with a profound subject, and the subject is the condition of all humanity and how it lives in this material world. Thus, it is much more likely that the speaker is addressing all of humanity in this philosophical musing. Let's consider his appeal. By addressing one's spouse or beloved and asking that the speaker and that person be true to each other, he would not be suggesting much of an improvement in the world events. But by asking all of humanity to be true to one another, he is asking much. In the conclusion of the poem, he gives us this piece of advice that if we can no longer believe in religion, we can no longer believe in science totally, but if we believe in one another, if we remain true to one another, if we extend true love for one another, true love and brotherhood to one another, we can save this world. As I told you, Dover Beach is the most celebrated poem by Matthew Arnold, who was a writer of the Victorian era. Now, the central idea or the central thought of the poem is the poem expresses a crisis of faith, with the speaker acknowledging the diminished standing of Christianity, which the speaker sees as being unable to withstand the rising tide of scientific discovery. Now, what are the basic themes of Dover Beach? The one which I have been repeating again and again, it is the loss of faith and certainty. This poem admits the loss of religious faith that came with the development in various fields of knowledge, that is biology, geology, archaeology, and even the Bible was questioned. The poem senses this turn of the historical as well as the cultural atmosphere of the world, and this change is echoed in the transitional figure of the beach. Please remember, students, that the sea and the beach are important symbols in the poem, because if you have ever been to the sea coast, you will see that with every wave, the shape and the design of the seashore changes. Similarly, human life has to undergo changes every single second of our lives. So nothing is certain in life. As I told you, there is the loss of certainty in life at every stage. So the poem thus asks the reader to consider what is lost in humankind's movement away from the certainties of faith. The descriptions of the sea and the sound of the pebbles on the beach are lyrically beautiful at first. As I told you earlier, because he has his wife by his side, it seems that he is going to write a romantic, a beautiful poem in her honor. But after a few lines, we note the eternal sadness in the poem, and this sadness is because of the speaker's sense of loss, which finds expression through the symbol of the sea. The two important ideas which we can notice in the poem is that, first of all, just as the sea coast or the seashore changes with every wave, similarly the shape of the society, the fabric of the society always changes with time. And because of these changes, it is very natural that what was true 5 centuries earlier is no longer true today. Therefore, there is the questioning of the religious faith as well. So we can say that apparently Dover Beach is a deeply pessimistic, not an optimistic poem that questions the dominant values of its day and embodies the sense of grief that some felt at the prospect of the loss of religion. This questioning still stands up in the 21st century, calling on its readers to examine whether their own lives are spiritually fulfilled. The next theme is nature and alienation. Here, in the Romantic age, you had seen poets describing nature and its beautiful forms. You had also seen poets taking satisfaction and solace in the midst of nature. But here the poet shows us a very cruel face of nature, uh, because in this poem he questions humankind's relationship with nature. Instead of finding happiness or the sublime in the natural environment, the speaker finds a deep sense of sorrow, because he finds the cold indifference and vast power of the natural world, which makes the speaker and all of us humans feel small and insignificant. The poem is therefore an attempt to capture the complexity of human experience as just one part of the natural world rather than as its center. And this is a thought which has occurred not only in Matthew Arnold since ancient times. This is a worry which has bothered all writers, and therefore he gives the example of Sophocles, who too must have seen the ocean and who too must have thought that life will keep on changing and man will always be in a state of unrest and worry. The last part of the poem is a suggestion by the poet, in which he says it is only love and brotherhood by which we can save this world. We can save the world by extending and by trusting our fellow human beings, just like a lover and a beloved can form a strong relationship only on the basis of love and trust. Similarly, the entire humanity can be saved only by love and brotherhood. Here I have given very brief summary of the poem, which you can refer often. So, stanza 1 deals with the speaker's initial experience of the beach, which shifts from calmness to restlessness or disquiet brought on by the sound of pebbles. Second stanza introduces Sophocles. The speaker imagines ancient Greece authors and believes that the tragic playwright must have experienced the same sort of pain that the speaker is experiencing now. Here is your 1 mark question also. You will be asked, like Matthew Arnold, who has experienced a similar pain related to humanity in the ancient times? Your answer will be, like Matthew Arnold, the Sophocles of ancient Greece, who was a dramatist, had also experienced such a similar pain. Stanza 3 shows the specific reason why the speaker hears sadness in the sound of the sea, that is the loss of faith, and stanza 4 finally tries, without totally succeeding, to build a defense against the future faithless world by professing the value of authentic love. So, while it seems that the poet is standing on the seashore with his beloved, this poem is actually a journey through the speaker's mind, and I have given you the main ideas that the poem demonstrates. And now the other important things that I would like you to understand is that a small note on the setting of the poem. The setting for the poem is twofold. First, there is the literal setting as suggested by the title Dover Beach. When we pay attention to the title, it comes to our mind that the speaker is going to describe the Dover Beach. And he is doing a bit of that. Dover is in the southeastern coast of England and it is a major port. The cliffs that the speaker mentions are largely chalk, meaning that they are white in color, which makes them glimmer in the moonlight. They also have a sheer drop with the coastline ending abruptly and giving way to the sea. The sea that the speaker looks out upon is the English Channel, which divides England from France, which is why the speaker can initially see France across the water. So, on one level, we see, which is a very simple analysis, that the speaker is standing on the Dover beach and he is looking at the beautiful sight of the night falling on the cliffs and the waves coming and crashing against the coast. But at the deeper level, the second level of the poem is, we can see the psychological conflict that develops throughout the poem. The scene is outwardly beautiful, the cliffs are impressive, but there is also a sense of vague threat. Because England is an island nation, anyone wanting to attack it would have to arrive by sea. That is a very small point, but there is another sense in which the poem setting is about the journey of the speaker's psyche. The reader goes along the speaker's mental journey from calmness to doubt to love for another to sadness and worry for the future. This is the second deeper level of the poem. Please remember that the sea and the beach are powerful symbols and they have been used metaphorically by the poet. And when you come to your one mark questions, there is some more information here. The Dover Beach is split into 4 stanzas of varying length. It has irregular meter and each stanza has different number of lines. For example, the first stanza is of 14 lines, which makes it a kind of a sonnet in itself. Okay, so the first stanza is a mixed up sonnet with a rhyme scheme A B A C E B E C D F C G F G. It is a sure signal of break with convention. See, in the romantic age, also we saw a break of convention from the neoclassical age, and after too much of romanticizing nature, the Victorian poets now also want to break the old ways of composition of poem. So in a sonnet they are using irregular rhymes. This is not a sonnet, this is a poem of 37 lines. I am saying that the first stanza is of 14 lines and the other stanzas are of irregular number of lines. Perhaps Arnold had intended to only write a sonnet, but he found that the subject matter demanded a longer form and he developed it further into 37 lines. Here is a list of words, of difficult words, which you might find, you can refer to and you can see the meanings from here. So, the Dover Beach, as I told you, is a complex poem. It is a philosophical meditation on the changing human life every day. The poet believes that human life has been transition. Transition means change, right from the ancient times to the modern day. And for him, the sea becomes a symbol. The sea and the waves crashing against it become a symbol of this change. And he believes that man is small and insignificant as compared to the power of nature, and only faith, love, and brotherhood can keep us all together and happy, because what was true some centuries back no longer holds true today. So, we can neither rely totally on religion nor on the scientific discoveries to solve all our problems. What can solve our problem is that we remain united in love and brotherhood. I hope this content, along with my explanation, will make Dover Beach interesting and easy reading for you. If you have any questions, you can post them on your group. And until we meet for another session of another poem in your course, see you. Keep listening. Thank you.